You probably don't control your brain as much as you think. We humans have evolved to where we are today, and because of that there are certain remnants in our decision-making process that makes us more likely to commit mistakes. It happens to us countless times that we buy something we don't really need and we don't even know why we bought it. Or we end up doing something without really knowing why we did it. Your brain, for the lack of a better word, has an algorithm, and this algorithm ends up making a lot of mistakes. The billionaire Charlie Munger has identified these mistakes that we all usually make, and he calls them the 25 cognitive biases. By knowing these biases, you will know how to avoid making these mistakes in your life and also be able to protect yourself from manipulation from people using these biases against you. I'm also going to show you how you can use these biases to influence other people. So the first bias is reward and punishment bias. This is pretty straightforward, but Charlie Munger says that he's still pretty surprised by how much this actually does influence people. People are more likely to be biased in the situation where they're going to get a reward or they're going to avoid a punishment. So if you want someone to do something for you, make sure there's a reward in it for them. You're way more likely to influence them that way than just relying on it being a favor. Also, you can use this to motivate yourself by saving the best for the last. If you're planning on working out every day, then promise yourself that you'll give yourself a reward by getting a massage after working out consistently for 2 weeks. Liking loving bias. We're more likely to favor people who we like or love. You must have seen this in your life all the time. We ignore the faults or the mistakes of the people we like, sometimes to such an extent that we end up putting ourselves in harm's way. This is known as an in-group bias in psychology. So in order to protect yourself from this, be sure to pay attention to your blind spots with regards to the people that you love. Maybe you are cutting someone far too much slack because you like them, or maybe you hired someone not fit for the job just because you like them. You can also use this in your favor by getting people to like you first. You can do this by using commonalities between you and the other person to create an in-group bias in your favor. Once you've done that, they're more likely to be influenced by you. Disliking hating bias. This is just the opposite of the previous bias. We tend to ignore even the good things about the people we dislike simply because we dislike them. This has happened to me countless times. When someone I dislike gives me some advice, I don't really take their advice even though it might actually be helpful for me. You should try to remove this bias in yourself because this stops you from getting valuable information from other people. Doubt avoidance tendency. Our brains are wired to make quick decisions. Our ancestors had to make quick decisions if they wanted to survive, because if they didn't move in quickly on the prey, they were going to starve to death. This is why our brains have evolved to resolve internal conflict so quickly, and we tend to make rash decisions while doing so. So keeping this in mind, always remember to take a break when you're feeling confused. It's better to think something over and make a calm decision rather than make a quick decision just for the sake of it. You can also influence other people with this by giving a series of confusing choices and then making one of the choices appear very simple and straightforward. Inconsistency avoidance tendency. We all have a conception about who we are in this world, and our egos make sure of that. Once we have an identity, we rarely do things that don't match that identity. We believe certain things, have certain habits, and eat particular foods. This is why a lot of us end up making the wrong decisions time and again, because we just don't want to be inconsistent with who we were before. Keep questioning your beliefs and keep evolving, otherwise you're always going to fall prey to this bias. If you want someone to say yes to something, you can use what's called a yes ladder. Get them saying yes to smaller requests first, and then they'll be more likely to keep saying yes to your bigger requests. Curiosity tendency. If you're able to get someone to be curious about something, they're going to pursue it with more passion. We're curious by nature and our brains are wired to solve riddles and puzzles. This is why in the context of dating, being mysterious actually works to a certain extent. Kantian fairness bias. Most people want the world to be ideal where everything is fair. This concept of fairness is very powerful because if you're good to someone, they'll be more likely to be good to you as well. Now this also works in the reverse. If someone is rude to you, you're also more likely to be rude to them. Envy jealousy bias. We feel jealous of other people in two situations. If they're close to us, like siblings or friends, or if they're out competing us in areas of life that are important to us. You might have noticed that a few people dislike you because they're envious of you. You can disarm these people by sharing your vulnerabilities. They don't even have to be real. All you need to do is to make them feel like you don't have it all. And when you're feeling jealous yourself, write down all the things that you're grateful for. Envy and gratitude cannot exist together in your head. Reciprocation tendency. Humans are social creatures, and the best way to survive in this world is to have a lot of connections. We do this by reciprocating other people's gestures. If someone gives you a gift, you feel like you have to give them a gift back. A lot of corporations use this bias by giving you free gifts. By giving you a free test drive or a cool t-shirt, you're more likely to buy the car because you feel obligated to. Influence from mere association. We tend to perceive things better if they're associated with someone we like. This is why advertisers use celebrities and models to endorse their products, because then people are more likely to make a purchase. This is also why recently advertisers had started pulling out of YouTube, because they don't want to be associated with any negativity, as that might hurt their brand. So for example, if you want to meet someone at an event, try to get someone who's close to that person to introduce you. That way, by associating you with their friend, they'll see you in a better light. Pain avoiding psychological denial. People tend to comfort themselves with a distorted view of reality just so they can live in peace. For example, some people say that all people are selfish, maybe because they don't want to deal with the fact that they themselves might be selfish. This is very dangerous because not only do you develop a distorted view of reality, but you also train others close to you to not tell you the truth. Keep an open mind in all situations, otherwise you'll get closed off and delusional. Excessive self-regard tendency. If you ask someone to rate their driving skills, more often than not, they'll say that they're above average. However, statistically, this cannot be true. We tend to overestimate our own abilities with regards to the other people around us. You have to give yourself a periodic reality check. You're not as good as you think you are. You can improve, and you need to improve continuously for the rest of your life. Otherwise, you're going to be stuck with people who are exactly like you, and you might become a narcissist who only cares about himself. Over-optimism tendency. We tend to be overly optimistic about our future a lot of the times. We think that we have a lot of control, when in reality we really don't. You can see this with people who buy lottery tickets. Even though the odds of them actually winning are very minuscule, everyone still fantasizes about winning the lottery because they think they'll be the exception. Now, this is not to say that you shouldn't be optimistic. However, you should be realistically optimistic. Take the odds into account and don't think that you're a special snowflake who will defy all odds. Deprival superreaction tendency. This basically means that we tend to react with irrational intensity even to a small loss. Sometimes people get extremely annoyed even if they get charged by mistake for amounts as small as a few dollars. This creates a lot of negative energy and makes you susceptible to manipulation from other people who might fool you into thinking that you're losing. Social proof tendency. This bias is huge and a lot of people probably underestimate its importance. When we see that something is liked by other people, we think that we should like that thing too. This is why people who are wanted by other people are seen as more attractive, and this is also why companies may try to manipulate you by showing you fake testimonials. You can also use this to your advantage. If you want to impress someone, you could take them to a place where everyone knows you and likes you. This will make them like you even more because of social proof. Contrast misreaction. We often judge a particular thing by contrasting it with something else. You might guess that someone is tall because of the person standing next to them, or you might think that a person smells good because everyone else smells bad. Companies use this to trick you into buying their products. They show you a before price and then the after price just so you have some contrast and you start to think that you're actually getting a bargain. Try to think very objectively in these situations and don't pay attention to any contrast that might cause you to misjudge the situation. Stress influence tendency. It is no secret that stress influences our decisions. The more stressed out you are, the more you're likely to make bad decisions. Exercise regularly, eat good food, and get some sleep. Meditate if you have to, but manage your stress so that you don't fall prey to this bias. Availability misweighing tendency. We tend to think that the information that is more readily available to us is more correct and accurate. This is the basis for why fake news spreads so quickly. Most people don't put in the time to do the research. They just assume that whatever is most easily available to them is correct. Train yourself to always think critically about whatever someone tells you. Just because you read the headline or someone shared a post on Facebook doesn't mean that it's correct. Use it or lose it tendency. This is simply our tendency to lose skills if we don't use them. If you learn a new language or a new word and you don't use it, then you're going to lose that skill over time. So keep practicing whatever you learn. That's the only way you're going to remember it. Drug misinfluence tendency. Well, this one is pretty straightforward. Don't do drugs, they're harmful for you. Senescence misinfluence. As we grow older, we're going to lose certain skills and abilities. You can slow this decay through continuous thinking and learning. Authority misinfluence bias. This bias means that we respect our elders too much, even when they're wrong. People assume that if it's coming from the top, it must be right. This is why religious leaders can sometimes have so much power, because people just believe that they're right about everything. This is also called the halo effect. Be very careful when a supposed authority figure tells you to do something, because you may be susceptible to authority misinfluence bias without even knowing it. Twaddle tendency. People talk a lot about things they don't really know about. No one likes to admit that they don't really know something. I've seen a lot of people do this. They ask everyone for advice. Don't do that, because everyone is not an expert. Only ask for advice from people who are actually experts in that area. Reason respecting tendency. Humans are wired to understand reasons, even if they don't make any sense. In a famous study by Ellen Langer, she showed that when people were asking for a favor from a stranger, simply giving them a reason for the request, even if it was artificial, greatly increased the odds of the other person complying. Lollapalooza tendency. This simply means that certain cognitive biases, when added together, trigger other biases, and the end result may be catastrophic. For example, if an authority figure gives you an artificial reason for doing something, biases 22 and 24 will combine to form an even greater bias. I hope you learned something new in this video, and if you did, then please click the like button. Subscribe if you haven't already, and thanks for watching.